Welcome back to episode 144 of the Disorganized Wizard Club podcast. My name is Alex. I'm here as always with Adam.
Hello.
And joining us back again is Cam.
Yeah, Skyping in from across the room.
We're a group of Ottawa-based players that play just about anything and everything we can qualify for. We talk about decks, tournament stories, just about anything to help you and ourselves get better at Magic.
Most definitely.
So
yeah.
I have a comment about speech.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, maybe the listeners can give me some feedback here, but I think I'm pretty clear when I speak on the podcast. I'm pretty understandable, maybe a bit quick at some times, but at this conference that I was at for a week, there were a lot of non-native English speakers, particularly from Europe. And one of the speakers there, her English wasn't that good, but she could understand Europeans' second language English. But any native English speaker, she complained, spoke with too quickly and with too much of an accent, and said that my accent was like incomprehensible.
Yeah, I think that Prairie Canada can kind of have a tough time with that. I've had that happen to me before as well.
Yeah, she asked where I was from, and I said Ottawa. And she's like, what is it? That's not a place. Because she wanted me to say Ottawa. And she's like, you're just saying Ottawa.
Yo, okay, never mind. This is just way off.
Yeah.
That's pretty extreme.
But I guess the D is like pretty soft when I say it. And I don't say two T's. I say like a D, like Ottawa.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah,
Did
I
you
just
say the D?
Yeah, like I don't pronounce Ottawa.
Oh, yeah. No one does.
Ottawa.
Yeah, Ottawa.
Right. And she's like, yeah, you're just mumbling. Like, I don't know what that is.
It's actually spelled A-W-D-A-W-A.
Yeah.
Ottawa.
So
Am I wrong?
No.
yeah,
That's the correct pronunciation.
this was the first time that I have experienced someone being completely unable to understand me because of my accent unless I spoke like really slowly.
Yeah.
I've had that happen, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're pretty clear and concise.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, our listeners can...
I edit all of your speaking on the podcast, so I think I have a lot of reference material.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we got a lot to talk about this week. Adam and I just got back from Richmond last night. Went down for the team event with Matt, who was on the show last week. Didn't make day two, but man, it was probably one of the better Magic trips I've ever been on.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's also frustrating because all our individual records were winning records, and we just had our losses combined in the worst possible, you know what I mean? The worst possible ways. We all had actually quite good records. Matt went 6-2-1.
Mm-hmm.
I went 6-3.
Mine was bad. I went 5-3-1.
Yeah. But I mean, that's still a positive record. Do you know what I mean? Like if our losses had just lined up better, then it was fine.
But I feel like to do well at a team event, kind of one player has to go, X1 or undefeated on day one if you want to make a run at it. And
every time I've ever done well at a team event, someone's just hard carried, a.k.a. Ryan Prager playing Storm.
Yeah.
Just hard carries in Modern. We just have to win one other match.
Yeah, that wasn't me. I played Hogak. I posted my list in the Discord for anyone who's a patron of the DWC. If you want to check that out, patreon.com/DWC podcast.
Or, I mean, they could also just look at the Star City Games Top 8 Classic.
Or you could head over to StarCityGames.com and check out the Top 8 of the Modern Classic, which I ran back my deck on the Sunday and went a nice, clean, undefeated in the Swiss to make Top 8, where I got promptly stomped out in the quarterfinals. But
As it goes.
I wouldn't say stomped out, having watched that match.
yeah,
You got pretty unlucky, and you had some opportunities, but...
Yeah, I was very close. Game one wasn't even close. I just did the Hogak thing. My opponent played a land and conceded. It was just kind of run-in-the-mill game one. But then he had a ley line both games 2 and 3. Game 2, I couldn't answer it, but I almost still had lethal. I had a top deck near the end that if it was any 1 or 2 mana creature, I would just win on the spot. And bad beats, I top decked Wooded Foothills that couldn't fetch the Dryad Arbor out of my deck because it was in my sideboard, and I sideboarded out, which would have also been lethal.
That's a huge beating. Yeah, that was rough.
You've just been playing too much Karn the Great Greater, just thinking you can get things out of your sideboard.
Yeah, it was a pretty rough beats. And then, game 3, it just, my hand, I had an answer to the ley line, but my hand didn't do anything after that. And I just died to Tarmogoyfs because I drew air and no enablers for my deck. So that happens, but I had a good tournament. It was a lot of fun. It's my first classic top 8. First top 8 at any SCG event, really. It's only the second SCG event I've ever been to, but it was fun.
Sweet.
I got a lot of birthday luck, let me tell you. I won some pretty absurd games through ley lines that I had zero business winning. And I just got like the perfect amount of luck on my side, and my opponent got the bad end of it. And Matt was watching throughout the day, and we were both just losing our minds. Some of the matches I won they were so crazy. But
Was Matt not in an event or just when
he was playing? He was playing in the Standard Classic at the same time. But
Okay.
the way the rounds were lining up is that we were kind of always one of us were done our matches, so we could watch each other play all day, which was nice.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, he didn't do too hot in the Standard Classic. I don't think he prized, but I took all the luck for myself and made it all the way to top 8, which was fun.
Maybe I was lucky, but I was just not there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you went sightseeing.
yeah. I just was burnt out from the trip and just on Magic. I wasn't tilted like at all. I just sort of like, I just don't feel like playing in the Classic or playing anything else right now. Like I'm just gonna go. We came so far, so I went to this like Bell Island and went on the swim the river and all this, like on the beach with all these locals. And
Man, oh man, was it hot there though?
yeah, there's a couple
Jeez.
Canadian lads. Oh man, there was at one point where it was like 97 Fahrenheit first off for the U.S. listeners, but
I have no idea
it was
what
like
that is.
36, 37
Oh,
without humidity. That's without the like feels like humidity
yeah.
registration. Like it was like in the 40s basically. I remember walking back from Bell Island and I hadn't had any water, and I'd been at a museum. I went to like some museums and went sightseeing, and then I was like out on the sun, like walking around. And I remember walking back and thinking, not physically, like I'm not going to make it, but mentally at one point, I almost just laid down on the sidewalk and died. Like I almost just mentally quit. I was like, man, this is unbearable. Like I'm out of here. And I even came back and I showed out. My neck was all burnt and like, it was rough, man.
You think it gets hot here in Ottawa with the humidity? It was next level down there.
And it's not even really that south, you know what I mean? It's just we're just not used to that kind of thing.
Not acclimatized.
Like I got back to the Airbnb and my shorts were actually soaked through. I've never had that happen in my life. Like that's how gross it was out there, man. Like
Yeah, I just dealt with people having the opposite issue, like people from like southern Spain coming to northern
just
Newfoundland and
Yeah.
freezing in the summer. I was like walking around in shorts the whole time, like walked to the convenience store, and yeah, the Spanish people just had scarves on, and there was like 4 people there from Brazil.
yeah, just freezing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, but man, oh man, we found a nice little barbecue joint that we hit up on.
Yeah, Fatty Smokes, a
Saturday.
barbecue joint is
Yeah.
its full title, which I love.
Let me tell you, man. People say that Dino BBQ in Syracuse is the truth. That place is trash.
Whoa.
No. If we're comparing it to
Oh, yeah, okay.
Fatty Smokes, trash, man.
Except it's also nuts. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, Dino is insane. It's very good. But compared to this place, everything in the world is trash.
Yeah, this.
well, maybe
That's-
you thought that Dino BBQ was good. What if something trumps this and you don't know what it is?
Well, Adam got a little tilted later in the night when we were out drinking, and one of the locals told us that Fatty Smokes was garbage.
And I was like, what do you mean? Like, how do you do better than this? And then they were like, go to ZZQ. Yeah, fine. Like, and like so many people were just giving different barbecue recommendations.
I see.
It's pretty great. Well, the thing with Dino in Syracuse is that it's pretty affordable. Like, it's like eminently affordable, and you get a ton of food.
Yeah.
But then again, so is this place, and we ate.
Yeah.
I ate I can eat a lot, I'm packing down. I didn't eat for another 24 hours after this meal because it was just, I did order this like dino, what was it called?
It was
Dinosaur bone.
Dinosaur rib.
And it was just this gigantic, a couple pounds beef rib. They literally just served it to me on a plate with nothing else, just a huge thing of meat. It was awesome, dude. I ate the whole. I asked the waitress, like, oh, is this a lot of meat? Like, should I get more? I eat a lot. And she's like, I don't know, your choice. Land of the free, life and liberty. Like, you pick, you make your own decisions, and you suffer the consequences.
Yeah. Like our apps were absolutely nuts. Our meals were nuts. I had this crazy brisket and sausage sandwich that was off the charts.
It was made on like cornbread,
Yeah.
sourdough bread or something.
Toasted
It was
like
nuts.
jalapeno cornbread.
Oh, that's what it was.
Oh,
It was wild.
Amazing.
And then obviously it's like peach season in Virginia. So the cobbler was.
yeah, it was like a peach cobbler / bread pudding combo that just like took us out.
Yeah.
Man, it was amazing.
Yeah. All right, yeah, that's a lot about food. This is not, yeah.
We're just
But-
going to become a food podcast for this episode.
Yeah, sorry.
But-
It's just that everything we ate actually in Richmond was
oh, yeah. Had the best breakfast sandwiches we ever had at a sandwich shop around the corner from the convention center on Saturday morning.
yeah. Everything was homemade. Like these homemade biscuits. It was just like how if you try to describe to somebody, well, it's just a breakfast sandwich, egg and cheese, and a biscuit.
Yeah.
They're like, okay. But well, I got like a crazy one. Mine had like a sweet potato puree with a grilled chicken breast and a sunny side egg and
Yeah, that sounds nuts.
yeah. And then it was like, what else was on there? Like cabbage.
Yeah, it was like coleslaw. I actually looked it up this morning because I went out I went out to breakfast with my girlfriend and I was telling her about the trip and I actually just talked about food for 10 minutes. I didn't talk about anything else.
Yeah, the food in Richmond was just actually insane. So if there's ever a tournament you're going to go play in Richmond, make sure you just go out eating all over the place. It's
Yeah.
great. We had some catfish at a different place, Mama J's. That was just unbelievable.
Yeah, the soul food place that was right across the street from our Airbnb, which also the Airbnb was just nuts as well.
It's the best Airbnb we've ever stayed at.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Like,
Its bathroom was the size of actually a living room. It just had
Why?
a gigantic jacuzzi tub, like multiple
okay.
sinks and mirrors all over the place, and then a walk-in stone mason double faucet shower. Like it was ludicrous.
Yeah.
It wasn't even expensive. Like that's the thing. Like all of this was cheap because I don't know like my U.S. geography super well, but I don't think Richmond has like a ton of money
yeah, who knows?
like
but-
in Virginia. And so I don't know. Like all our stuff was so cheap and affordable. It was crazy. Like I couldn't believe it. It was amazing. I wish the tournament went as well as the food did. But actually, I was pretty happy with my like event.
Yeah. I mean, I had a ton of fun playing in the team event,
I
despite
mean, team events are just like the
Yeah.
best.
like despite us not making day 2. Like the whole day was pretty fun, just playing Magic with you boys, But
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I thought I was a little off on my legacy prediction. I should have known better. I thought that there would be a lot more run in 6 decks and Delver decks and Stifles and all this. And, again,
yeah, you didn't play against a single Delver deck, right?
no. And on top of that, not a single, again, only one of my opponents played around Stifle.
Yeah.
And the way he did it, and then he said, yeah, I'm going to play around Stifle. And he knew I was Stoneblade already. He still did it out of just like principle.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I respect. It was the guy that called the judge on himself,
Mm.
which I didn't talk about on the show. I guess I talked about on the pre-show, but
Yeah.
he was great. And then I said, you're the first opponent to play around Stifle today. And then throughout the day, no one did, which again,
Mhm.
I was like, said this on the show. Because on Moto, if you play on Magic Online, everyone plays around Stifle. But in paper, just no one plays around it. They just fetch willy-nilly. Dude, it's wild.
You just gotta, if you're going to an SCG event to play Legacy, just play Stifle.
Yeah, just get them.
Just get people all day. But we ran back. We played the decks we talked about on the show last week. I played Hogak. Matt played Vampires. Adam played Stoneblade. I played against the mirror match 4 times on day 1. And unfortunately, 3 out of those 4 times was against the Hedron Crab version, which you're just a stone dog to. I think I went 0-2-1 versus that version of the deck, and I beat the like actual 75 card mirror match. But
Yeah, Crabgak, it just can refuel its graveyard way too consistently compared to you. So they just take over the board eventually, right?
yeah, you just auto lose game 1, and as Hogak, you're just supposed to win game 1. But when your opponent is just a much better Hogak deck, it just don't. But
This is sort of the similar reason why I was saying that, like, eventually Dredge will win the matchup if it's
Yeah,
Dredge
yeah.
Gak, is that they just consistently put more cards in their graveyard over time and eventually can grind you down, where they run out of things to delve and all the other things like that. Whereas, yeah, the Crabgak version doesn't have that problem as well as much.
yeah, they essentially have like 8 copies of Stitcher Supplier when you only have 4, and Supplier and Crab are the best enablers in the deck, right? So
That makes sense.
yeah, but luckily for me, I didn't play against a single Hogak deck in the Modern Classic the next day, so it was a easy walk in the park.
Easy undefeated run
Yeah.
in the Swiss.
Yeah, played against Blue White Control twice. That deck, my opponent played 1 land in both game 1s and died. Like, yeah, I enjoyed my last hurrah with Hogak though.
Well, maybe.
Well, we'll find
Possible last hurrah.
out. Yeah, I was going to say we'll find out this weekend.
Yeah,
So if it doesn't get banned, would you run back a similar list, or are there changes you would adapt from maybe what your opponents were doing or how the tournament went?
I actually really liked my list. I think it was almost perfect. The sideboard, my list was pretty much, well, I mean, anyone can go see it. Just check it out at StarCityGames.com, the Modern Classic. 8th place Modern Classic, but played 2 Shriekhorn, like I was talking about a lot on previous shows that I like Shriekhorn. I played Lotleth Troll. Lotleth Troll is still, up in the air on how good it is, but I think it's kind of fine for the role it fills. Like sometimes it's a pretty high variance card. Sometimes it's actually absolutely nuts if you've drawn a Vengevine or 2 early, and sometimes it just doesn't really do anything. But as two copies of it, the main, I think it's totally reasonable for the matches that it actually turns out being really good. But sideboard was pretty tight. There were a couple games where I think it would have been better to just have played a 3-1 split between Force of Vigor and Nature's Claim, just for play draw considerations.
But you played all 4 force, right?
I played 4 forces. Okay. Yeah, I think against Jun particularly, Nature's Claim's better because it doesn't put you down 2 cards. In that matchup, they're Thought Seizing and Inquisition you, so you just rather have cards.
That makes sense.
So if you're expecting to see a lot of Jun, like I played against it once in the Swiss and then once in top 8. And yeah, I think it would have been better to have a Nature's Claim split. And I mean, Jun's been performing pretty well, so I don't expect it to go anywhere. So it's probably just correct to have that split, particularly for that matchup. But I mean, everywhere else, Force of Vigor is pretty much better, especially like against Grixis Urza. It's really good. Yeah. But yeah, the tournament was fun. The trip was great. Took us 15 hours to drive down there on
we
Friday.
got stuck in DC traffic. It was similar to when we got stuck in Boston traffic on the way to Providence. Remember that? Where it was just
like around the ring road of Boston.
And then it was just 100 or 150 kilometers of just stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
That's what happened to us.
Right on.
Yeah, it was miserable.
Left at 6:30 in the morning on Friday. Got in just before 10:30 at night to Richmond. It was a adventure.
Yeah, we just got caught in traffic and just racked us. Well, actually, what happened was there was the several accidents.
Mm-hmm.
So
and finally, after we had got out the worst stretch of it, like an hour and a half, 2 hours of sitting in traffic, we thought it was free the whole way, and then we get a notification saying there's another accident, and it just added an hour to our trip.
Instantly adds an hour. We're like, oh god,
you gotta be kidding me. So we took some side roads to avoid it, but. Yeah, there was a ton of accidents on the way there.
Yeah, hopefully people are okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Was there like weather?
No, I think
something.
The whole drive though, even in driving through like PA and everything, there's just tons of accidents. I don't know.
Yeah, it was.
I think there's just
very weird.
way more people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, is it like a normal number of accidents? I guess is what I'm curious.
Yeah, I have no idea. I just assume because when we drive places, there's just no one on the road, so there's just way less accidents.
Yeah,
there's a population is just tiny.
But yeah, I drove a total amount of almost 30 hours, I think, for the entire trip. So I'm very happy to be back.
Because we went to Philly the night to stay in Philly, eat cheesecake, hang out, have some beers at some dive bars,
Yeah. Went to a local, what was it called? Jim Steaks to get some cheesesteaks.
We're back on food.
Yeah. Yeah. Saw the Liberty Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Felt super free.
Felt liberated?
Yeah, very liberated.
There's this strange contradiction that Matt and I were pointing out, right? About it's like Liberty Bell, and then they'll constantly, it's a symbol of freedom and all this, but then they tie it and constantly refer to it as sacred, and then it's tied to all these like acts or other things that are parts of social bondage. So there's this great sort of duality, that I'm not sure people realize, and I don't think it's intentional, between the Liberty Bell and calling it sacred and implying sort of like religious distinction or bestowing religious sort of convenience and thought on something that's supposed to say, liberty, and then it's actually just also tied to bondage, right? And sort of all these other problems. It's super funny. It's like a really strange, as an outsider, you're like, you can kind of, I think, more easily see the contradictions and distinctions and sort of strangeness of it all. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
So you're not allowed to do whatever you want to the Liberty Bell?
No. People are getting photos and like taking selfies in front of it. But
Yeah.
we should have actually got like a team selfie in front of it,
Yeah.
obviously.
Adam really wanted to take a selfie, but we said no.
Oh, the kind I wanted. Yeah, we couldn't have done. Yeah. No. We would have got
We were not thrown out.
Yeah. Well, worse than that.
Right, yeah, probably arrested.
Yeah. Moving on.
Let's talk about some Magic, I guess. Despite the we had the team event, but there was also the MCQ weekend on Arena this past week, and a lot of talk about a new standard deck that kind of exploded onto the scene, putting both pro players Stan Sifka and Andre Strosky into the Mythic Championship with this Kethis combo deck that, I mean, versions of a deck similar to this had been kind of floating around for a while, but no one had really cracked it until now. And I mean, they had a fantastic tournament, both of them qualifying for the MC.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, so I guess if you haven't seen this deck, the way it works, and I saw it just earlier today, I guess it's not really exploits, but sort of takes advantage of an unintuitive reading of Kethis. Like when you activate Kethis' ability, exiling 2 cards from your graveyard, it just lets you cast any other legendary card in your graveyard until end of turn, not just 1 or some number. So, they activate Kethis, and then if they have access to a Mox Amber in hand and a Mox Amber in the graveyard, or 2 Mox Ambers in the graveyard, they can just cast that as many times as they want, because it casts 0 and keeps killing the old one. And then if they do this with a Diligent Excavator out, they just mill their opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And in deck gets to play Urza's Ruinous Blast, which is awesome.
Yeah, you have multiple ways to win with like looping Othakayas as well, or just milling your opponent out. So
yeah, it's resilient, right?
Mm-hmm.
And has multiple angles that it can win from, which is important for the deck. So
yeah, you get to play Lazav, the multifarious, as 4 extra copies of Kethis if
That's
they get
strong,
dealt with early. So, and of course, you're a Teferi Time Raveler deck like you should be if you're trying to do combo-y stuff, and might as well just play the best card in the format. So it's definitely a sweet looking deck. And I mean, you don't see decks pop up like this too often and just have a insanely sick run like they did. So very clearly there's something really powerful here.
yeah.
And it is cool to see decks like this still popping up where, like we mentioned in the pre-show, that the format had kind of stagnated between Vampires and Scapeshift. And it didn't really feel like there was much interesting stuff going on in Standard anymore. But
So have either of you guys played with or against this yet?
No, because we were on the road, right?
Oh, it popped up that recently?
yeah,
it was this
okay.
it
weekend.
was this weekend.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Like 4 days ago or whatever.
Yeah, because I'm just like looking at it, and it's got a lot of the same sort of shell as the old Command the Dreadhorde decks. Just a bunch of sort of flexible legendaries that can bring the other cards in your deck together, and then some sort of like big finish. And I'm wondering how different it is from that deck, or from that old archetype, or if it's just kind of like a, maybe if you're playing against Scapeshift, who has this like maybe potentially bigger combo, trying to command the Dreadhorde is too slow, but this is something that you can do with all these legendaries that's faster. Just, or maybe it's entirely different. I don't know. I was going to ask, but none of us have played it.
Yeah, it's a really interesting deck, and I'm sure there's a bunch of people who are streaming it now, so you could go check it out if you want to learn it. But yeah, it's just good to see cool little strategies like popping up like this late in the format. You know, there's still cool stuff to iterate on in Standard.
This usually happens, I think, though, when a format stagnates. Like if it's been, as you're saying, like mostly Vampires and Scapeshift, it would make sense that people would start to ask, like, is there anything I can do that can sort of attack both of these? And then usually some like very niche strategy pops up for a weekend or a week or two that can kind of attack formats like that. Like this has happened in the past too, when it was like 4 colors of Healy and Mardu, like something would pop up that could take it out for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't have that much that you actually have to attack. So you can ignore what would generally be weaknesses of a deck in a broad meta. Because as I think Strosky was saying on Twitter, like Feather and Mono Red are like pretty bad matchups for this deck because they're a bit too quick. But if they're just not around, then you can ignore that and build something this sort of niche. So this put 2 copies into the MCQ, you said, right? Or into the MC. What else qualified?
So the rest of the decks that qualified for the MCQ weekend, we had Mono green Stompy, getting one copy through. Not a deck we've really seen in a long time, so that's kind of funny. The rest of the format was pretty straightforward. We had 5 Vampire decks, 4 Banned Scapeshift decks, and 4 Boros Feather decks. So I think it's pretty clear what's good right now in Standard.
I wonder. I just wish I could see how the Mono Green Stompy's games went. Was it like running very hot? Is there something they know that we don't?
He's probably just a limited player, and he's just like, I don't know. Just
Vinemare was unbeatable in its limited format, so I'm going to cast it in Standard.
Well, the guy who's number 1 mythic on Arena for limited is also just by far the biggest trophy leader on Moto for limited. And he's like a silver ranked player. But he's like, he got like 50 trophies. The next highest person has like 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Dude, and he's number 1 mythic in limited. Nuts.
Huh.
Yeah, I know. I mean, looking at this deck, 4 Nissas, 4 Vivians, 4 Mana Vivians, Barkad Troll, Thorn Lieutenant. No Galtas in the main deck. 4 Vinemare. Just
Vinemare can't be blocked by black creatures, right?
correct.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're getting sort of scape shifted at instant speed. If they like scape shift and pass back, this can probably, like if you have some Vinemares around, you might be able to kill them.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Also, Vampires just cannot deal with this card.
Not very well, yeah. Because what do they have that's not black?
Nothing.
Adonto Vanguard, but it's terrible on defense, so.
Yeah, they have Sky March Aspirant and Legion's Landing tokens.
Yeah, they could cobble a couple of those together, but it's not looking good.
Yeah.
Otherwise, nothing in their deck. They have no removal that can kill it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's obnoxious.
Wait, Vinemare's busted right now.
Good old clean metagame call. 4 Vinemares in your main deck.
That's actually really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of call that's actually like so smart.
4 Nullhide Ferrex in the sideboard. Love to see that as well.
4 Vivian Arcbow Ranger.
Yeah. You know,
We got to make these Vinemares big. How you gonna block them now?
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, the Standard shakeup has been live on Arena now for a couple days to get your full art basic island. And I just played Green Red Stompy. I posted the deck list on our Twitter if anyone wants to check it out, but it was just an easy 6-0. Stompy still confirmed good.
Yeah, I mean, also with Vivian Arcbow Ranger, you can just go get the Galtas.
That's true.
You know what I mean? And then you
Yeah.
just don't have to worry in matchups where your Galta's dead in your hand. This is actually really good.
That's actually nuts. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, like the more I'm looking at this player's deck list, their list is very good, I think, actually. The more, you kind of consider what's happening here. You can go get a Carnage Tyrant. You can go get Nullhide Ferrex if you want. You can go get a Voracious Arch or a Thrashing Proton. You can sort of, toolbox out things you need, but your sort of streamlined game plan main board is always pretty safe. You can always cast these cards and they always do something, whereas Galta is risky.
Mm-hmm.
But now, we've eliminated that problem. But if you're in a board stall, yeah, you just go, tutor up a Galta and play it.
This is Cavertech's deck, by the way, if anyone wants to go look for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Kavartech.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone who wants to look for it. But I think this deck list is very good, actually. The more I think about it, probably lines up very, very well in the format.
Yeah.
My only concern would be something like Bant Ramp. I think this is probably a rough matchup, but if you don't play that, you're fine. Because Bant Ramp's just doing the same thing you're doing here, but with more tools to do different things and sort of play a longer game if they want, right? If you're just sort of bouncing creatures and planeswalkers off each other and trading resources, the Bant deck will pull ahead.
Mm-hmm.
That's just an inevitability they have versus this deck. But you also have more of a beatdown plan, so it's close.
Yeah, you'll have draws that just completely go under them as well.
Yeah, and it depends if they're playing time wipes and stuff like that. Like if they're playing time wipes, I don't think you can win that matchup. But I mean, again, it's not the most played deck. The most played decks are Scapeshift and Vampires. So
Yeah.
I think this green deck probably has a really good matchup against both. I'll play it actually
Well,
this week and report back. I'm actually curious about the 4 Vinemare. I think it's probably really good.
Yeah. An interesting iteration out of all the banned Scapeshift decks in this top 16, all of them also adopting Time Wipe in the main deck, which is, what most Scapeshift decks are doing now, which I think is, a totally correct call. 4 Feather decks, 4 Scapeshift, 5 Vampires decks. I think it's very clear what the best decks in the format are right now, and this is kind of where we're at. in this Kethis deck, putting 2 copies into this top 16 is really just completely out of nowhere. And I think they probably got in mostly on just people not understanding how to play against it and what to do, particularly what cards are good to fight it. But it's probably one of those decks that now becomes a lot worse because it's a known quantity and people will understand how they have to attack it, right? It being really good for this past weekend, but
Yeah, I can imagine that, like, if they played against Boros, that, like, maybe they spent their Reckless Raiders wrong because they didn't expect a Diligent Excavator to land and kill them or something like this. But I'm curious to see if this Kethis deck, like, if it sticks around. If it's actually a sort of good deck when people know about it.
Yeah, I'm also interested. I don't really know. It's not a deck I have any experience with, so...
Well, if it is good, then we'll just have to be playing 4 ley lines in every format.
I mean, it isn't much longer for both modern rotation and standard rotations.
Yeah, there's
That's true.
going to be 2 rotations coming up pretty quick.
When Hogak gets banned on, was it Monday?
Yeah, 26th.
Yeah.
Monday. So
Yeah.
after, well, I mean, I was talking about this with Alex on the drive back. I don't know they ban it for sure yet now, but it depends on this weekend, I think.
Yeah, the GP at Vegas is really gonna
Oh, that's this weekend.
sway things, I think.
Ooh.
It's the last modern event before the ban announcement. And I actually think if Hogak doesn't have a good tournament, we might not see a ban. Which,
It probably will.
yeah, I mean,
People are mad enough about it that I wouldn't be surprised they ban it because of that in a lot of ways. That it's like, well, this makes it's essentially a turn 2 win. It's not, but it's essentially virtually.
I kind of hope that they just ban Faithless Looting instead.
That'd be so ridiculous. Can you imagine?
That would be incredible.
You know, all in all, though, having said that, Modern Horizons only having one gigantic mistake when they tried to push multiple cards is pretty sweet.
Well, it depends what you consider a gigantic mistake because there's a lot of people complaining about how powerful Ren and 6 is as well.
I think Ren and 6 is fine.
Yeah.
I think Ren and
also
6
think
is
it's fine.
it's fair. It's a fair card. And so I just can't really, yeah, sure, it's super good.
I'd argue that there were 2 massive mistakes in Modern Horizons. One of them a card, Hogak. The second one, the first attempt at banning Hogak. They probably could have done that better.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
They missed the mark on that one.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't really think a lot of the other cards are a problem or anything's wrong with them, you know? Goblin Engineer is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, same with Urza, but
But it did what they wanted for the set, right? It shook up Modern, made new archetypes, sort of injected some life into a format.
I mean, it didn't just shake up Modern, shook up every single format.
Yeah.
Besides the one it's not legal in.
yeah.
But, I mean, Vintage is currently got War and Modern Horizon cards all over it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are just main decking Force of Vigor.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
kills Moxes, it kills work. You know what I mean? A lot of shops decks.
that's sweet though. Like, right, that was their goal, was to sort
Yeah.
of change up these old formats in a hopefully not too disruptive way, which they almost pulled off.
Well, I think they did in the other stuff. I mean, War too. I mean, Karn the Great Creator is just also everywhere in Vintage. Teferi Narset. This is also the case in Legacy.
Yeah.
These
Yeah, I heard you
cards are-
talking about it on the last episode, Teferi Narset.
Yeah. They're everywhere. Also, Prismatic, I think, actually changes.
Yeah, Prismatic Vista.
It's just in Legacy, actually unbelievable. So one of my lands opponents, the one who their team got 9th on Breakers, if you look at Harrison's list, is not playing Wasteland in lands. The Life from the Loam deck
Why?
because of Prismatic Vista.
Just because people are getting basics?
Yeah. Ghost Quarter can destroy basics, so you can just lock them out.
Yeah, okay.
So just playing Ghost Quarters and a lot of less sort of. No, he is playing 4 Wasteland. Sorry. I didn't see it on the drive, but yeah, I didn't see any against him. He just Ghost Quartered me out of the game, just take my basics. But they only used to ever play 1 Ghost Quarter as like a way of like in case they play against Stoneblade. But now you see 3 Ghost Quarters, and he never played a Wasteland against me. I don't know if he boarded them out or like what he did, but he just never, because we didn't see him. I didn't see any. And also I'm Wasteland proof, but yeah, Prismatic just changes so many matchups that you kind of have to lean on Ghost Quarter. And you can't just Ghost Quarter lock me out of the game. I only have 7 or 8 basics. You know, you just do it enough times and I can't cast spells anymore for the rest of the game.
Yeah, they could take you off white pretty quickly as well.
They have 2 ghost quarters.
Yeah.
Just take 2 ghost quarters, take both my planes, and I can't cancel Judgment anymore. Swords to Plowshares, I just die to a 20/20, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty easy for them to do that because then they just wasteland your Tundras when you go get the 2 Tundras. But yeah, they're playing way more ghost quarters, and like you don't see, like I actually didn't see wastelands in games 2 or 3 against him. And when he flipped, I think he boarded them out, which is fair because you can just board in Tireless Trackers, which is what Tireless Tracker and Choke is what he boarded in. He actually boarded out at Dark Depths as well for an Experimental Frenzy. And he got me with Frenzy, actually.
I guess Exploration lets you get like Frenzy better, right? Is that how that works?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
If you have multiple explorations, you can play multiple, you know what I mean? You can play 3 or 4 depending on how many explorations you have out.
That's really good.
Yeah. And then also Crucible helps if they're worried about, going to surgical your Life from the Loam. They bring in the Crucible when they're worried about graveyard stuff so that, like surgical, so that they can just keep playing the Ghost Quarter over and over from their graveyard if they have a bunch of explorations and just Ghost Quarter your lands. So basics are actually not that great in this matchup. But the reason I was thinking about this is that for anyone listening, I was right, by the way, that Wrenn and 6 is not a big deal, obviously, for Stoneblade, which is why we played the deck, and we assumed a lot more people would be playing Wrenn and 6. Mm-hmm. I only played against Wrenn and 6 twice, but both times it was just full-blown irrelevant. It just does absolutely nothing against me. I also didn't play Wastelands like I said I was going to, and I played a Caracas.
And it ended up being nuts.
Yeah, I got paired against Sneak and Show in round 3, and I just had natural Caracas. I just drew Caracas and played it, and he just sighed for a bit and then just did nothing for like 7 turns as he died to a true name hitting him for 3, and then that was my match. Because in game 2, I just naturally drew Caracas.
Just as you drew it up.
Yeah, well, they can win through Caracas. Actually, but it's really hard. They can't just play one thing, but they can, if they play Omniscience, they can show and tell on Omniscience, and then what they do is cast Emrakul.
Yeah.
Right, off the Omniscience, or another way to do it is they play Sneak Attack, and then if they have 2 red sources and 2 things, you sneak in the Grizzlebrand and the Emrakul, and then attack with both.
Yeah.
One of them's going
to
kill it, so... That's one of the ways they can do it. So they can be Kragas, but I mean, if you have some sort of interaction and protection, it's pretty tough to lose. I did also get to Teferi. I had a Teferi in play with Caracas in play, and I boarded in a Vendilion Clique, so I could always pick up my Clique.
And people Caracas their thing and get rid of it?
Like Caracas my Vendilion Clique to return it to my hand and constantly see their draw steps. And then pick it up so that they couldn't kill it ever because I just don't let them during a main phase. Mm-hmm. I can just pick it up on the end step or something. I can't respond because of Teferi. I never did get to live the dream of having a Narset in play and being able to do it on their draw step where you Vendilion click them with a Narset in play and you just thought sees a card. And then Crocs back your clique, which is sort of was my goal for the weekend.
Yeah, that's really good.
The problem is, I talked about how Narset, and Matt and I talked about how Narset sort of broke rules for Legacy. That card just sucked all weekend.
Really?
Yeah, Narset was just bad. I had an opponent play 3 of them against me, just did nothing, and he died. A lot of it is because I realized something about it, is that it's just a win more card. If you're ahead on board, you're already going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And if you play a Narset from behind, you just cycle it for a card and then it dies. So it just doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I guess. So, is that just sort of you had more experience playing the card in Legacy that changed your opinion? Because you were pretty high on it, shutting out a lot of the effects in Legacy on last episode. Is it just...
It just doesn't line up in time.
Okay.
I also only played 1 copy.
But you wouldn't have...
I'd play 0 in the future.
Play 0 in the future, yeah. Is there a meta that you would want more in, or do you think that's just kind of a trap in Legacy?
Yeah, I think it's probably fine if you're playing against, unfair decks. I think you probably want it against, it would be good against Sneak and Show, if Sneak and Show is everywhere, and it would be good against Storm, just to stop their cantrips. But the problem is, if everything's a creature deck and you're at all can't protect it, it's just sort of bad because they'll just kill it and then do what they want, right? But in unfair metas, I think it's better. I'm not saying it's bad in Legacy. I'm saying it just didn't line up super well in the meta, and I just boarded out every game. But whereas Teferi was even if someone, let's say they have a True Name Nemesis, I can play Teferi plus it.
Mm-hmm.
Teferi goes to 2. The next turn I just plus it again and then play Council's Judgment safely on their True Name.
Yeah.
Whereas Narset can't do any of those things.
That
so
makes sense.
Teferi actually protects your game plan a lot better. And also just being able to, bounce a Germ token or something and draw a card.
Yeah, believe it or not, Teferi was absolutely nuts.
Yeah, Teferi was always
Legacy.
nuts for me. Like, I played against Mono Red Prison in one of the later rounds, and I had a Narset in my hand, and I just wanted to concede the match because of it. I was like, I can't cast this. It's just a waste of mana. It does nothing in this matchup. It's just so bad. I would kill for this to be a Teferi so that I could bounce this dumb Chalice and actually cast spells that matter. Yeah.
How many Teferi were you playing?
1.
Okay.
I think I could see 2. It was very good. But probably the best decision I made all weekend was to play 4 True Name. I beat the Mirror every time I played it, which was actually I was surprised that I played the Mirror. And one of my Mirror opponents said he played the Mirror 5 times.
Wow.
Because apparently everyone else realized what we did, which was that you don't care about red and 6. The problem is that in paper, the Legacy meta had not adapted, and we didn't play against any red and 6 decks. And there was I didn't see a single blue-red Arcanist deck in the room. I didn't see, the online meta is just so far ahead of the paper meta, which, makes sense for Legacy, and I know these things, and I should have thought about it beforehand. So I was preparing for a meta that Legacy isn't at yet in paper.
That's kind of like, it sort of did adapt, but in a weird way, based on what I think you're saying is that the people who showed up to play Legacy willing to adapt to a meta adapt a step too far ahead, right? Like Stoneblade showed up. That was the adaptation.
Yeah.
So
But they were all a step ahead.
Right. It's kind of weird, right? It's like half the room adapted and then the other half didn't. And so no one really was playing the same meta.
Yeah.
So maybe
there was a lot of turbo depths, a lot more Golgari depths, which I wasn't surprised by because if you're normally a lands player, you can just switch to turbo depths without really changing anything. It's an easy card availability issue.
Mm-hmm.
Even David Long, who's a famous lands player, was playing turbo depths as opposed to lands. Although lands, I believe, lost in the finals, so it's still fine. But yeah, format was in an interesting position. There's a lot of prismatic vistas floating around, just fetching out basics and working as a fetch land, which is sweet. And that card's very good. Some pretty cool decks. I think Daryl Ayers was playing the coolest deck and probably ahead of the metagame too much.
Yeah, it's 4-color control deck.
4-color control with Astrolabe, with 4 Arkham's Astrolabe and snow-covered lands in a 4-color deck that its creatures are 3 Baleful Strix, 2 Plague Engineer, 3 Snapcaster Mage, and then just 3 Jace and 3 Ren and 6, and then a bunch of, what you'd expect from the sort of old check pile control lists for, removal and other things like that. Deck seems actually insane. You can just Plague Engineer, True Name Nemesis.
Oh, yeah.
Never have to worry about it.
That's really good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Baleful Strix is good. Astrolabe makes it so that you don't get wastelanded out. This is what made me think about this, is that this deck actually is a 4-color deck that doesn't get punished by wasteland.
Yeah, I can't have its colors attacked very easily.
Because of Astrolabe and snow color, you know what I mean? Snow covered. It's so weird. I swear on the drive when I looked at Harris's list, it didn't have wastelands, but maybe my phone cut off the bottom of the list or something. But again, this is just a weird place right now in Legacy where wasteland isn't as dominant as it was. And I think that's people adapting to Ren and 6, right? Because you can't afford to just get wastelanded. They play Ren and 6 and then just keep recurring wastelands.
Yeah.
You just can't take that risk anymore.
Yeah.
So you see this adaptation where wasteland isn't the sort of busted card it used to be. It's very interesting. And that's why we sort of changed our decision on the drive down to Richmond to not play the 2 wastelands we normally would in Stoneblade.
Yeah. And I mean, you only played against 2 decks with Ren and 6 in the 2 lands decks you played. But if you look at the top 8 of this event, there's, there's 3 Delver decks, all of which who play Ren and 6. So they were there. They were just kind of rising to the top while we were getting smashed.
Yeah. I just never played against any of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I have a good matchup versus them. And I just never got the chance to sort of play against them. I think these matchups are pretty good for me. Not nuts, but good enough that I can at least play Magic, whereas they can just sort of wasteland lock some people out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
You still see some Arcanists, but it's once, there's 1 copy in the top 8. I just expected to be a lot more blue-red because I feel like blue-red is really, really popular in paper a lot because it's more affordable, but seen Arcanist and Rug, but yeah, I wish I would have been able to play against the Ren and 6 decks more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, that was like out of order, but also in the MCQ decks, I wanted to say, being that many feather decks, that deck's unbeatable. That deck only loses the pilot error. Every single person is just like, Feather's the worst matchup. Like, didn't Strosky? He's like, Feather's the worst matchup.
Yeah.
Matt, what's your worst matchup? Feather. When he's playing vampires, like, can't beat that deck.
Can never deal with that.
Everyone I talk to, like, what's your worst matchup? Like, man, Feather. I can't beat that deck.
It's because everyone's playing decks that, like, vampires obviously doesn't want to play, like, Wraths, right? They're not going to Kaya's Wrath themselves. And Feather can just stomp past targeted removal. Like, if you just are trying to spot removal things, Feather's going to range you.
I feel like so many of my opponents on Arena just miss sequence, and I'm just like, oh, thank God. Because if they had just held up God's Willing instead of playing out this other creature, I can never win in a million years. Yeah.
God's Willing's really, really, really good in that deck.
Yeah, Feather is, I think, actually a good deck. But and then as far as Matt's standard event, so I've mostly talked about my legs. Like, Snowblade was good. It was a fine choice. I went, 6-3 and lost a super close game to Goblins. Like, all my losses were close except for the Depths loss, which I just played like maybe the worst Magic I've played in 5 or 6 years. I don't know what happened. I just forgot how everything worked. I didn't know what I was doing. I missequenced all my lands. I missequenced my brainstorms. I missequenced actually everything. My brain just shut off and I just forgot how to play Magic. Just got absolutely stomped. It was incredibly embarrassing. I turned to Alex afterwards, like, yeah, I don't know what happened. This is an easy matchup for me. And I just literally threw it away, just playing like a complete idiot. He's like, yeah, it's okay. And then later in the day, Matt and Alex also got to join me in the punt prison.
I'm playing against Mono Green Tron, right? It's game 3. I'm on the play. I thought sees him on turn 1. I see like Power Plant Mine, Worm Coil, Relic, Ravenous Trap, and like 2 other irrelevant cards. I turn to Matt and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this Relic because I can play around this Raft Trap, right? He's like, yeah, okay, makes sense. So I take the Relic. He top decks another Relic and plays it, obviously. I'm like, that's bad. That's really bad.
Yeah, you should have known you can't thought seeds Tron.
Wish I took that Raft Trap now. But, and then like, next turn, I cast a Faithless Looting. And I'm looking at which cards to discard. And Matt's like, Raft Trap says 4 cards, right? I was like, yeah, it says 4 cards. It's like, okay, let's discard 2 of these Blood Gas and then play our land. So I do that. And then my opponent's like, okay, Raft Trap you, it's 3 cards. And I was like, ooh, no.
We ended up winning this match, which is the most wild part.
Well, I didn't. We won this match as a team because Adam and Hemsley won. I was very much losing.
But also, Hemsley also won after he attacks his 1/1 Legion's Landing token into an Adonto's Vanguard because he's like, oh, the guy's just going to block and pay 4 probably. Like, I'll get in my, I'll gain a life, I guess. And, he's going to trade 4 life or take 1. And the guy just blocks. And Matt's like, damage? And it's like, yeah. And Matt's like, okay, like they trade, and the guy just points to his Legion's Lieutenant. And then, it gets better. And then Matt plays his post-combat Legion's Lieutenant.
Yeah.
He's like, apparently he said he tanked for like 5 minutes because he's like, is there any way I cannot play this Legion's Lieutenant right now and still win? Like, so that the guy doesn't have to know that I just did that.
Yeah.
He's just like tanky. He's like, I just want to concede so bad. And then he ended up winning. And I also won my match. So it was okay.
And I was very much losing.
And Alex was 100% dead from this punt. And luckily that was, I don't even remember what I was playing against.
Played against Dredge.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's right. We had no right winning this round because those two punted this round. So the Golgari deck, when I punted and I said I played the worst Magic, I wasn't kidding. I actually had like a full-blown like aneurysm and stopped forgetting how to play Magic. I had double Swords to Plowshares in hand, and he's going to make a 20/20. And I just fetch Island. And then I look down and I just have 3 basic islands in play. And then I just die. That's what happened. It was off of Prismatic. I could have just got a Plains.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what happened. I just passed the turn. I'm like, yeah, got him. Go. And he's like, make a 20/20. I was like, next game. Like, that's actually what happened. I don't know what happened, man. My brain just shut off, like full blown. Like I've never had that happen. It was like, I don't know how to explain. I was like telling Alex and Matt afterwards. I was like, I just want to go home. Like,
was this before or after you guys ate all that food?
This was before.
Okay, so then
But
that's
yeah,
not.
we have no excuse. We have actually no excuse.
It was crazy because I tricked myself into thinking Rav Trap read 4 cards and you can cast it for free. And then when Matt asked me if it read 4 cards, that just confirmed my already incorrect thinking. So I was like, yeah, for sure, discarding these blood gases is 100%
that makes
correct.
a bit more sense than
But mine was like obviously a mistake. I meant to get a planes too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were all just like mental. You know what I mean?
It's one of those things that you just like half a second later. It's like you walk into a room and you're like, why am I here?
Yeah, I could have maybe been like,
oh,
Judge, I meant to get a planes, but I was like, it's already too late. I already like shuffled and passed the turn. Even though I like did it main phase, like after a brainstorm.
Yeah,
like,
if your opponent's like make a 20-20 and you're like, Judge, I meant to get a planes.
Right, yeah, exactly. But like in my head, I thought I had a planes in play.
Yeah,
like, it was just like one of those, which happens to everyone. Like I just like it was literally a dexterity error. You know what I mean? Like, but and then the round that they both punted in their games, like mine was earlier, round 2 or whatever. It was luckily we won, but we had no way winning that entire round because I went 2-0 as Stoneblade against Dredge,
which is like not possible.
Not possible. I played one of the Stoneblade mirrors. I played a round or 2 later. I said, man, I can't believe I beat that Dredge player, you know, or something. And he went, wait, you beat Dredge? And I said, yeah. He's like, yeah, that guy stomped me. And I was like, yeah, we can't win that matchup. He's like, yeah, I know. We have no interaction game 1. And game 2, we just have 2 surgicals. That's it. And he's like, yeah, he crushed me. And I was like, yeah, I crushed him 2-0.
Yeah.
With
Adam was just kicking himself the entire day because the night before he cut Rest in Peace from his sideboard because he didn't think he needed it. We just played like 4 or 5 decks. That Rest in Peace would have been nuts again.
Yeah. I just played against decks where Rip would have been insane. And I was like, nah, you don't need Rip. That card's for like amateurs. Like, that's dumb. And then the whole time. And then the guy was on the play, just turn 1 mana confluence. And before he even cast the looting, I just like turned to Stally and I'm like, well, hopefully you guys can win your matches because I'm dead. And then I just proceed to play. I play Plains Pass on turn 1 because I'm like, well, maybe I'll sort something, like against Dredge. And then I just play turn 2 Stoneforge, doesn't matter. And then turn 3 True Name, and he just whiffs on every single Dredge. Never sees a single Narcomoeba, Icarid, or anything. Just never makes zombies off bridges and just dies to a True Name with some equipment on it, and that was it.
It was like the unluckiest Dredges on the planet.
The whole table, like everyone watching, people were just like, what is happening right now? Like no one could believe it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm like, well, I'm probably gonna lose like the match anyway, because like you can't get that lucky. And he just like, I'm like, okay, snap keep. Like, I don't have force, but I have surgical. That's awesome. And he just immediately unmasks me and takes my my surgical. I'm like, nah. And then he proceeds to Dredge, make a bunch of whatever. I'm in trouble. I have a True Name and a GTA that I just ran out naked on turn 2. Played a True Name, equipped it, attacked, put some counters on it. He has on his turn, he like Cabal Therapies me off an Icarid, makes a million zombies. He has 3 bridges in the graveyard, makes 12 2/2s. I'm already at 8 from taking hits from other zombies, and I put a 4th counter on my GTA, like counters 3 and 4. But actually, so I'm gonna die. I'm like, well, I'm dead. Like I have no outs. But I had boarded in Supreme Verdict, like, well, maybe I fall behind to maybe I fall behind to zombies and I somehow get them. Like I get to 4 land and get them. Draw for the turn, just Supreme Verdict. I'm like, huh. So I'm able to like Supreme Verdict the board, which kills my True Name, which exiles all 3 bridges in his graveyard.
Oh, wow.
And then my GTA has 4 counters on it, and he has 3 Icarids in the bin. And then he's like, he has no other Dredgers left because he's been exiling for Icarids. And he's like, exile Icarid, attack you with Icarid. I'm like, minus GTA. And he's like, oh, yeah, right. Uh-oh. And he like realizes his Icarids are just all useless in the face of GTA. And then I draw like a Stoneforge, put the G down and kill him. Like, I had no right. It was just the world's luckiest Supreme Verdict. So I got incredibly lucky to save us.
Yeah, well, I just like punted away my match so horribly.
I don't know what happened that day.
Yeah, we all just like went outside after that match. We're leaning on the wall, just like, oh my God, we did not deserve that one.
Yeah.
There's no justice in this world.
Yeah, we all outside just laughing, like there's no justice. Like we don't deserve this win.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was justice because we just proceeded to get smashed every round for the next few rounds.
Yeah, it was
very like comically unlucky fashion. Like Stelly like play a turn 2 Hogak and then just lose the game easily because he would just literally draw 6 lands in a row and just peter out and die.
Yeah.
And that happened about 4 rounds in a row.
Yeah.
But it was still a lot of
times.
fun. It was super fun. Yeah, it was a fun time.
But yeah, my tournament on Sunday went a lot better. Yeah, so if you're going to play Hogak this weekend for one last hurrah and you need some Hogak cards, head on over to wizardtower.com, your source for Magic single needs here in Canada. Great sponsor of this podcast since day one. Go head over there, wizardtower.com.
Yeah, free shipping on singles in Canada. Do we mention that?
Orders over $15.
On all order. Yeah, got to make sure we mention that part or Ben's going to get mad at us. Yeah, this is a long weekend. There's a lot to talk about. It's kind of a jumble because we're not going to get through all of it because obviously we played in a team tournament in which we played Legacy, Modern, Standard, and then also you and Matt played the Classics. So it's kind of, just a mess right now to try and talk about everything we played against, what was going on, what we thought the tournament was like. So,
And I'm just useless this episode, sitting over here clueless.
You're at a conference. It's excusable.
Yeah, if people have any questions about Hogak because they're playing it this weekend, feel free to hit us up at Twitter at DWC Podcast 1. Or if you're a patron, just shoot us a message in the Discord. I'm happy to answer a bunch of questions.
Yeah, and I'll have a sideboard guide posted for Blue-White Stoneblade by the time this episode's up in the Discord. So check out that if you're interested, if you want to play Stoneblade. And I'll talk about the matchups and what's happening with the deck. And I also posted a sort of guide already for the mirror, for how to play the mirror and how to win the mirror, as I went undefeated and have remained undefeated in the Stoneblade mirror for a long time now. So you can check that out.
Well, thanks for joining me on the club again, Alex and Adam. Thanks to all our listeners for joining the club this week. It's been a good time.
Make sure, as always, you check out wizardtower.com, your source for your Magic singles. If you want to support the show, you can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/DWC Podcast. We're on Twitter at DWC Podcast 1 and Facebook, the Disorganized Wizards Club Podcast. And however you listen to the show, whether it's Podbean, iTunes, any podcast app, leave a review, rate the podcast, share it with your friends. Everything helps keep this thing growing and bring it to new listeners. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Later.